Glad you could join us today on Earthfile. Welcome to the program. I'm Ayola Kasim. There's more than enough food produced in the world to feed everyone, yet 815 million people go hungry, as reflected in the Sustainable Development Goal 2. One of the greatest challenges the world faces is how to ensure that a growing global population, projected to rise to around 10 billion by 2050, has enough food to meet their nutritional needs. To feed another 2 billion people in 2050, food production will need to increase by 50% globally. A world without hunger and malnutrition by 2030 will be very challenging. The hurdles that must be crossed and how are the focus of today's program. Do stay with us.
Nigeria's northeast has for decades been dominated by agricultural industry and subsistence farming. In the past 4 years, the insurgency by Boko Haram has exacerbated problems in the region, leaving it further impoverished and facing a severe lack of food. The insecurity has left many farmers unable to plant or harvest their crops. In BENUE State, 5.8 million people are estimated to face extreme food and nutrition deficits, a figure that has doubled in the past year.
Severely food insecure, if you want, is a technical term that we get from the World Food Programme and from the Food and Agriculture Organization. What it really means is that people are living on the edge. They are surviving on, if they can, one meal a day.
The food security situation visibly worsened in parts of sub-Saharan Africa, Southeastern and Western Asia. This was most notable in situations of conflict, in particular where the food security impact of conflict were compounded by droughts or floods, linked in part to El Nino phenomenon and climate-related shocks.
Water's the issue here. You have a drought, which means the cattle, the livestock suffer, which means the people suffer, which means there's hunger. That's the issue here. The World Food Programme is feeding 3.3 million people on average per day in the Somali region, and it's because of a drought as a result of the change of the climate.
What we're trying to do here is to save lives. And here, save lives of a community of pastoralists means also save their animals. Because without their animals, they will not have milk for their children. The children also will die or suffer.
Over the past 10 years, the number of violent conflicts around the world has increased significantly, in particular in countries already facing food insecurity, hitting rural communities the hardest and having a negative impact on food production and availability.
So I saw thousands of brave aid workers working alongside the government, bringing some relief to the suffering of the people of this region. In terms of the situation overall, it's absolutely clear that because of everything that's happened since the beginning of the year, the major risk for famine has been averted, but the humanitarian situation remains very, very difficult, and there are lots of people in really acute need, and many just one step from starvation. So we've got a lot more to do to get the government to take more action, building on the really good things they've been doing, including on food distribution, and to mobilise the international community to stay the course, because the job's not done. We need to finish the job.
818 million people are hungry, up from 777 million in 2015. The United Nations' first global assessment on food security and nutrition reveals that 115 million children under age 5 are stunted. 52 million suffer from wasting, meaning their weight is too low for their height. And an estimated 41 million children are now overweight. Anemia among women and adult obesity are also cause for concern. These trends are a consequence not only of conflict and climate change, but also of sweeping changes in dietary habits, as well as economic slowdowns.
After years of progress, the report finds that the number of hungry people around the world is on the rise. This signals a reversal of trends and could undermine efforts at reaching zero hunger by 2030. These worsening figures are also directly linked to the increase in conflicts around the world and to places where there is conflict and floods and droughts. Food insecurity has worsened, especially in parts of sub-Saharan Africa, Southeast Asia, and Western Asia.
Of the 815 million chronically food insecure and malnourished people in the world, the vast majority, that is 489 million, live in countries affected by conflict. The proportion is even more pronounced for undernourished children. Almost 122 million, or 75% of stunted children under age 5, live in countries affected by conflict, with the difference in average prevalence between conflict and non-conflict affected countries at 9 percentage points.
Millions of children across northeast Nigeria, Somalia, South Sudan, Yemen, and elsewhere, innocent victims of a deadly combination of protracted, irresponsible conflicts, of drought, poverty, and climate change. Living through crises defined not only by hunger and ruined crops, but by preventable diseases like cholera and measles, displacement and interrupted education, a generation of children at risk. If unreached, a generation of children more likely someday as adults to replicate the hatred and conflicts of today.